I bet it's a bullet gonna get the last laugh.
Stage DLC that was added in the new update has quickly become one of the most talked about things in the community. This has triggered a response from Harada. Now, before we get into his response, for everyone who's confused why this is such an issue, I see so many people say, just pay the $5, just pay the $5. It's only $5. The fact of the matter is not the $5. The fact of the matter is Bandai Namco didn't properly explain what players will be paying for and not paying for. Think about it. They did this Tekken Talk, and the purpose of the Tekken Talk was to explain the whole entire update. Heihachi, story DLC, skins, shops, collaborations, crossovers, all of this stuff was to be touched on in this Tech Talk. But when it comes to one of the things that players have to pay for, somehow, mysteriously, they don't talk about it. And players feel like that was intentional. They intentionally didn't talk about the stage being paid for because they knew they would get pushback from the players. After this Tekken Talk happened, there was a lot of people who was coming to my streams and whatnot asking me, is the stage free? Is the stage free? And I had to tell people, no, it's not free. And the reason why they were making that assumption is because the stage that we got before, the Lydia Beach stage, was free. You give one stage that's absolutely free, and then you don't explain anything at all about this second other stage. You don't say it's free, you don't say it's paid, you don't say it's bundled with Heihachi, you don't say it's separate from Heihachi and also the season pass. You just leave it in this weird, vague realm of pay for it. Now, another thing is, too, a lot of people were referring back to the Ultimate Edition. But the players who paid for the Ultimate Edition, they invested more into the game. And when you buy a premium version of the game, you expect it to include, like, pretty much everything. In my opinion, the fact that the Season Pass doesn't offer more is pretty ridiculous. It could have definitely included, like, one Battle Pass or, like, some Battle Pass points or some shop points. I think the Ultimate Edition was very bare bones. And the amount of money they were charging people for all of this stuff, it definitely, in my opinion, was not worth the purchase, which is why I completely did not buy it. I seen what they were offering and I was like, no thank you. Really, the only reason to buy the Ultimate Edition was because of the season pass and the characters that followed. But now we see that it has even less value because the stages for said character aren't even bundled. And a lot of people say, oh, well, they did this in Tekken 7. No, that's not true. In Tekken 7, the stages was a part of the season pass. If you bought the season pass, you got the stages. Yes, you could buy the stage separately, but for the people who bought the season pass, the stage came with it. So once again, when you talk about the developers not explaining that this time they're doing things differently, that is why people got upset, because you have past examples of the stage either being bundled with the season pass or the stage being free, but this time it's separate. And once again, when you do a Tekken Talk explaining the entirety of the update, something like that needs to be specified, because I guarantee you there's people who probably bought the season pass with the intent on getting this stage as well. So it's just misleading the consumer, no matter if it's unintentional or intentional. And considering how greedy Bandai Namco has been, you can't fault the player for believing that this was intentional. Now, with all the hate that Harada and Bandai Namco received, he responded pretty fast, and I like this actually. This shows that players speaking up when they feel wronged is a good thing, because you could get a response directly from the developer, the guy in charge. Harada says, I understand the community has some questions about the release of the DLC stage. As a person in charge of Tekken franchise, I apologize. It was made clear from the beginning that the Year 1 Pass Season 1 would not include stages, but even so, when Lydia's Sobieska DLC released, the Seaside Resort stage was free. And in this case, even though the additional story mode, which should have the highest development cost, is a free update, but the Heihachi stage is sold separately. As a result, the release ended up being one that was not well understood or accepted by everyone. At least almost all of the community was expecting a pattern similar of that of Lydia. And that's what we're talking about, right? A pattern, a formula, a blueprint, something that we can follow. One stage free if they put this other stage out there and they don't explain it, you have to assume it's free. And then when they say it's paid, you have to, when you hear that paid, you assume that it's a part of the season pass, like Tekken 7 did. And that's simply what we're talking about, is clarification. He goes on, he says, there are various reasons for this, but I will talk about the background to this as an individual in order to increase transparency to some extent. The Tekken project is divided into two companies, a development studio and a publisher that is responsible for game sales. At the time development and release Tekken 7, the development and publishing companies were not separate. Oh, okay. This would probably also explain why Tekken 8 is so greedy all of a sudden, because their ability to monetize the game is now taken from their control. As some of you may know, I moved to the development studio a few years ago and have been focusing on maximizing the quality, content, tech, graphics, etc. The development side and publishing side each have their own roles, and there are differences in the way that they think and the responsibilities. I, who should be the one act as the bridge between the two, have not been able to properly participate in the publishing sales decisions making process as a result, I think that there were parts of the process that did not take the community's opinion into account. What Harada is saying here goes so many layers deep. He is acknowledging that he should be the bridge between these two and make sure both are on the same page, but for whatever reason, he's not able to do that. Whether he's just not able to do it because it's too much to put on one person, or there is some kind of roadblock preventing him from doing both. Harada says, I think I failed to create an organizational structure that would allow me to oversee things beyond my own position. One of my roles was to listen to the opinions of the community and reflect them not only in the content but also in the out game. But I was clearly becoming passive, worrying about the relationships between companies and not exercising my role. From now on, I will review the structure and change it to one that values the community as it did in the past. That is crazy. That is crazy for Harada to say, because Harada is a high up executive in the Tekken Bandai Namco company, right? And the fact that he is acknowledging that things got out of his control and he was not properly overseeing things, and he is acknowledging that it's not in the player's favor. See, there's a lot of people who say, why don't you guys just buy it? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? You have the guy in charge acknowledging that it's not in our favor. It is completely against us. The monetization and whatnot has gone so far, and he is saying here that he is going to restructure it to get control over it and put it back in the favor of the player base. This is, even though I criticize Tekken and Tekken 8, they've been going so far, I always try to give respect to Harada because he does things that many other game developers would never do. This is something that you do not see nowhere else in the gaming industry, and I bet you can even leave it and still won't find something that matches this. This level of communication and clarity from a developer is astounding. But once again, when you go back to the idea of the people who defend the bad monetization practices like it's their job, look in the mirror. He is 100% acknowledging that a lot of this stuff is not for the consumer, and he wants to fix that, mend the relationship, and put things back on track. That is amazing. Wow. Wow. That is a very powerful statement.